Let me assert my firm belief that the only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
Was this statement simply a way to make people forget their fears and come together in a difficult time? Or is fear itself the thing we might need to be most afraid of? Fear can be so irrational, it's hard to believe that we struggle with it. Maybe it's fear of the future, or fear of failure, or maybe it's syngensophobia, the fear of relatives, or papophobia, fear of the Pope, or the all-important arachibutyrophobia, fear of peanut butter sticking to the roof of your mouth. I think too many of us suffer from panterophobia, which is fear of your mother-in-law. Sometimes fears can be paralyzing, stopping us in our tracks from doing amazing things and keeping us from becoming the best version of who we were meant to be. What is it that has allowed fear to keep you from doing or becoming? More importantly, what are you afraid of?
Well, good morning, all of our campuses, Prosper, McKinney, Frisco West, and all of us here at Frisco East. Man, it's good to see you guys. How are you feeling today? Good? We good? Well, hey, I am excited about today, starting a brand new series called What Are You Afraid Of? And I know there's, for many of us, there's tons of things that are on our list for being afraid of. Today, we're going to start this series and lay what I believe the perfect foundation for this series. My friend, Mike Foster, is a counselor. He is a teaching pastor at his church in San Diego. He is an author, a world-renowned speaker, but more importantly, he is my friend. And he is our friend here at Hope. A few years ago, I met him when he came and did our men's conference and blew us away, not just speaking-wise, but friendship-wise, and just knew what kind of guy this was. And he came back last year, we invited him, and now he's back this year. He'll be back again, God willing. And I promise you this today, if you have an open heart, you're going to leave filled. I promise you that. I want you to open your hearts all across our campuses. And would you join me in giving a Hope Fellowship welcome to Mike Foster, my friend, our friend, as he comes to deliver the Word of God to us. Give him a hand, would you? Mike, love you, man. So glad you're here, buddy.
Love you, man. Thank you. So great being with you. I love that guy. We've had such a great time this weekend just hanging out, and thanks for letting me be a part of your family this weekend. And we are going to talk about fear today and our relationship to fear. And for the past 15, 20 years, my whole life has been really dedicated to helping people build strong lives and relationships. And one of the key things that we need to build a strong life and strong relationships is how we handle our emotions, and really what I call creating emotional fitness, and really connecting into understanding what's happening inside of us and our internal world and our mind and our thoughts. And fear plays such an important role in terms of how we respond to life, how we respond in relationships, how we think about our future, how we think about our past, how we interact even with God. And so the topic and this idea of fear is something that we have to look at. And I'm really excited about this series. I'm excited about today that we get to unpack it a little bit and see what it is and what it means, and some of the ways that it controls us, and some of the practical things that we can do to help manage fear and release fear and discharge the emotions of anxiety and stress and fear and the stuff that sometimes just bogs down our life. So I am from San Diego, born and raised in Southern California. And the idea of horses is kind of a new concept to me. I know a lot about surfing, and I know a lot about earthquakes, and unfortunately now I know a lot about forest fires living in Southern California. But horses are a new concept, and a friend of mine a couple of weeks invited me to come out and see his brand new thoroughbred horse that he bought. And I'm like, yeah, I'd love to check this out. And so he invited me out to his little ranch, and we got out there, and I had my boots on and feeling all Texan, and kind of walk into the stable. And it's all, again, I'm a newbie. And so I'm walking up, and there's this beautiful, amazing creature standing in front of me, this thoroughbred horse, just packed full of muscles. And yeah, I'm 6'4", and I'm standing next to this animal. I feel tiny and insignificant. And my friend is there, and then the trainer is there, and she's telling me about horses and kind of some of the history of horses and how they behave. And she referred to this thoroughbred horse, this magnificent animal, as a prey animal. Not in sort of the P-R-A-Y animal, but prey, like to be hunted, and she talked about how this horse is often on high alert and very dialed in to what's going on around it in case it's in danger, in case something might happen to it. It feels at some level threatened by life. And I think to myself, like, how is this even possible? That this magnificent animal, strong, powerful, probably weighs over 1,000 pounds and can run up to 50 miles an hour. And if it wanted to, could just literally kick me across the whole ranch to the other side. And so strong and elegant. And I thought to myself that I think we are a lot like that thoroughbred horse. That sometimes we don't understand our power, our strength. That often we live our lives in high alert, thinking that we are in this constant danger. That we think about our future and our life and our story, and the only thing that we see are worst case scenarios. And I get it, like a lot of us in the room right now, and a lot of us watching online and at the other campuses, there are some significant things that you are struggling with and some significant challenges. But how we approach those challenges and how we see those challenges, and whether we see our story as a story of stress and fear and insecurity and scarcity, or we see our lives and our stories as in the hands of God, that we're in this good, beautiful story, that we are taken care of, that the creator of the world is in control of all of it. The Bible says in John 14:27, it says, "Peace I leave with you. My peace I give to you. Not as the world gives, do I give to you. Let not your hearts be troubled, neither let them be afraid." See, we look out into our society, we can look out into the world, and sure, I get it. There's a lot of things to be afraid of. There's a lot of things to fear. Maybe you fear failure. Maybe you fear getting sick. Maybe you're fearful about the future of your job and your career, your finances, and maybe there's a relationship or a marriage that you're in that's creating all kinds of anxiousness and worry. I get it. We live in a broken world. We live lives that have the opportunity for us to buy into the fear. And God says, let not your hearts be troubled. I've got you. You're mine. I will get you through it. So as I have walked the past years, literally hundreds, if probably close to 1,000 people now, of just leaning into their stories, counseling them, helping them navigate trauma and pain and relational breakage and just all kinds of issues that people work through. As I sit with them, I have learned some things about fear. And the first thing that I learned is that fear is a spiritual, psychological, and physical issue. I think sometimes as Christians in the church, we just think, well, I just need to trust God more, or I just need to pray more, I just need a verse, I just need to hold on to a verse, and that will solve all the fear, that will solve all the anxiety, that will solve all the worry that I'm experiencing in my life. And I would say this, that is an amazing start. Absolutely, there's a spiritual aspect of fear, and we have to address it in our lives. But there is also a psychological mind issue, and there's also a body issue when it comes to fear. And sometimes we forget about that. But let me give you an example. So like with the psychological part, the mind part of fear, is that you and I are wired with what researchers call the negativity bias. And it basically means that human beings like you and me, we tend to see things through a negative lens, a negative filter. That we look at life and we're really good at being critical or finding what's wrong, or we look at our future and we can find every reason why it won't work versus why it will work. That's the negativity bias. And scientists have said that most of us have between 12,000 and 50 to 60,000 thoughts a day, which is a lot of thoughts. And I'm thinking I'm probably more on the 12,000 range. I don't know where you're at. And my thoughts are like this. I want chocolate. I want McDonald's. I want to take a nap. Those are my thoughts, really. And it doesn't go much deeper than that. Maybe sometimes a little bit deeper, but I think those thoughts a lot. But 12,000 to 60,000 thoughts, like that's a lot of thoughts. And what we've learned is that 80% of your thoughts in a typical day are negative, critical, fear-based, cynical. That's just the way we are wired as human beings. Again, the negativity bias. And the other thing that they found is that 95% of our thoughts are repetitive. So think of it. You take one negative thought. Maybe you think about a relationship you're in, or maybe you think about your career, or maybe your finances, and you take one negative thought. Let's take this. She doesn't love me. And I just play that thought over and over and over and over again. Is that thought not going to create a lot of stress, a lot of worry, a lot of friction in my life? Absolutely. And so we have to be aware of the psychological impact of fear. I mean, we're living in a day and a time right now where we are inundated with messaging that is just simply fear-based. It's the way we sell advertising these days, scaring you, okay? We have to be aware of how our brain processes all of that stuff that's coming in. And then there's, of course, the physical part of fear. And God has designed our bodies to have a central nervous system. And part of that central nervous system is this part of it called the sympathetic nervous system. And the sympathetic nervous system is what is responsible for fight and flight. You probably have heard that maybe in when you're studying in school or science. We have this fight and flight response. And that is a unconscious, we're not in charge of that. Whenever we're scared, whenever we're frightened, whenever we're overcome with anxiety, our body just starts to respond. That sympathetic nervous system increases our breathing. Maybe our muscles get tighter, and we have a physical response to fear that has to be addressed. And so basically what I'm saying here, and my point is that fear is a very, very complex issue. And so sometimes when we talk about fear with very simple answers, or maybe we see things on Instagram or Facebook that just say, fear is a liar, or we need to conquer our fear. Like those make great inspirational posts, and we love to retweet that and share that. I get it, but it's too simplistic of an idea. We have to understand all the moving parts and all the things that are going on when we live in a world that does have frightening things. when there are things that do go wrong in our lives. Number two, so I know that fear is a spiritual, it's a psychological and physical thing. Also know that when fear runs your life, it ruins your life. And some of us have experienced this in our stories where we have allowed fear to make the choice for what we'll do, what we'll decide, what we'll risk, what we won't risk. Fear is calling the shots instead of God calling the shots, or faith calling the shots, or hope calling the shots. Listen, when fear is at the steering wheel, you know it's going to take you in the wrong place. You're going to land in a destination you don't want to land in. And so when fear runs your life, it ruins your life. Number three, fear is often like a mall cop who thinks he is a Navy SEAL. Okay. See, all the time, like, here's this thing. And listen, we got to respect fear. We got to understand that it's a part of our lives and it is present and we'll have, a relationship with it. But it really wants to take up a lot of authority and a lot of space. And it wants to tell you what to do. And really, here's what I tell people. Fear can have a voice, but not a vote, okay? It doesn't get to have the final say. It doesn't get to control you. It doesn't get to say, like, this is what you're gonna do. It's a mall cop, all right? And sure, we gotta respect our mall cops, and if you're a mall cop, I love you, thank you for your service, okay? But you're not a Navy SEAL, okay? And so putting it in its right place, again, using the car analogy, it's like, man, maybe fear doesn't need to be at the steering wheel. Maybe it needs to be sitting in the back seat. Sure, it can chatter, have an opinion. It can have a few thoughts, but we don't let it drive the car. So one of the things that when I've been working with people and just even in my own life, the key to having a good relationship with fear and making sure that it's in the right place, it has the right power in your life is really to think about how you're interacting with it. And so much of it is about how you hold it is how you'll handle it. And let me give you an example. I've got a glass of water here, some good Texas water. And if I were to ask you to hold this glass of water for a minute, that would not be a problem. You could hold it for a minute and you'd be all good. Say, that was easy, Mike. But then if I asked you to hold it maybe for 10 minutes, maybe after 10 minutes of holding this exact same glass of water, your arm would start maybe hurting a little bit or maybe feeling a little tired. Then if I ask you, well, I want you now to hold the glass of water for an hour, maybe after an hour of holding that glass of water, your arm would start hurting a lot and being in a lot more pain. But then if I asked you to carry this exact same glass of water for a day, well, you'd be in big trouble, wouldn't you? You'd be like in so much pain. You'd be hurting. You'd be like struggling just to hold the same glass of water. Now, here's the deal. Nothing has changed about the water or the weight of the water. The only thing that has changed is how long you've carried it. And so as you think about your fears, as you think about your worry, when you think about your stress, it's not that we can't experience those things. It's about how long are you going to hold on to those things. How you hold it is how you're going to handle it. And if you handle it by saying, listen, I recognize it, I see it. See, a lot of times when fear comes into our lives, what we want to do is just, we don't even put it at the wheel, we just throw it in the trunk of the car. We say, I'm going to ignore it. I'm going to pretend it's not there. I'm not going to deal with my emotions. I'm not going to deal with my stress. I'm just going to pretend like it doesn't exist. And so you live your life holding something you were never meant to hold. Isaiah 41:10 says this, fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. I will help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. You see, we need to take that glass of water and give it to God. Say, you hold it for me. You take it. You're so much better at this. You're so much stronger than me. Like you just take it, God. I can't hold this any longer. See, God asks for surrender, but fear asks for control. See, God says, like, if you just give it to me, if you surrender it to me, if you let me have it, if you loosen your grip, I'll take it. But our fear says, no, I'm gonna handle it. I'm gonna control it. I gotta do something with it. I gotta gut through this. I gotta fix it all. And there's a cost to that. And this isn't the life, the fear life, the control life is not the life that God or the story that he wants you in. I have this new dog, a little Pomeranian dog named Lincoln. And he's a COVID dog. My wife and I were bored and lonely and maybe a little afraid. So we needed a little dog to distract us. And so early on, we've had him for about 6 months now. And he's this cute little guy. He weighs about 6 pounds. He's tiny but fluffy and full of energy. And so we've been training him a little bit on how to play catch. Basic dog stuff, right? Well, we've been having some problems with Lincoln because he doesn't quite understand how it works. In fact, let me show you a picture of Lincoln so you get a sense of who he is. So that's our dog. That's Lincoln Foster right there, and that's in his mouth is his favorite little duck, and that's a squeaky duck, and we play catch with the duck. And so I'll take his duck and I will throw it across the house, and he will go bounding off to get the duck. He brings the duck back and he holds on to the duck. And I look at Lincoln, I say, Lincoln, drop it. Drop the duck, drop it. Because I want to throw it again, right? And I'm like, Lincoln, drop the duck. And he's just holding on to that duck and he's got his grip on it and his teeth are in it and he's like not letting go of the duck. And I'll actually will reach down and try to grab it out of his mouth and wrestle out of his mouth and he just will not let it go. I'm like, Lincoln, this is not how this is supposed to work. You're supposed to drop the duck so I can throw the duck again so we can have some fun. And he doesn't understand. He's missing out. And finally, I wrestle it from his mouth and I throw it again. Like, we'll try, second chances. That's what we're all about in the Foster family, second chances. I throw the duck. He goes chasing the duck. He brings it back and I tell him, drop it. Guess what he does? He doesn't drop it. He just holds onto it. And I think we are the same way. Like, we've got our stuff. We want to control our future. We want to control our career. We want to be in control of our finances. We want control of all the outcomes. And we're gripping tight, just like little Lincoln on his little duck. And we're like missing out on all this fun. I'm like, Lincoln, if you could just drop the duck, we could have so much fun here. I'd throw it. We could do this for hours upon hours and you'd have fun and I'd have fun. But you gotta drop the duck. And here's my message to you today. Friends, drop the duck, okay? And I don't know what your duck is, but you know what it is. You know what you're trying to control and hold on to really tight, that you're unwilling to surrender to God. You say, like, no, God, I got this one. I'm gonna hold the duck. I'm gonna hold the water. This is mine. God says, man, if you just trust me, just let it go. This could be really cool. This could be really fun. You don't have to live with all this stress. You don't have to wake up at 2:00 in the morning and start computing your finances in your head, or start running these scenarios about someone you're dating right now, or you don't have to run scenarios about like whether you'll get the job or whether you're going to get laid off or what your future. Like, just if you drop the duck, God says, I got a good story for you. Psalm 34:17, it says this: is anyone crying for help? God is listening, ready to rescue you. If your heart is broken, you'll find God right there. What an amazing promise. It says this: if you're kicked in the gut, he'll help you catch your breath. How many of you have been kicked in the gut in the past few months? Maybe the plans, all the things you wanted to do. Maybe certain things have not gone your way. Maybe you're struggling with a health crisis. Maybe you have a son or a daughter that has just gone off the tracks. Maybe you've been kicked in the gut and God's saying, I'll help you catch your breath. And just to breathe in. You know, breathing is one of the most powerful stress-reducing things that we can do. You know, when I'm feeling overwhelmed in my day, or maybe had a tough conversation with a friend, or I'm starting to worry about certain aspects of my life, I just sit down on the couch and I just begin to breathe. It's just an act of kindness towards my body. Say, here, Mike, here's some oxygen. And just again, engaging the physical aspect and just breathing. And God's gonna help us breathe again. You know, we basically have these two options. If you want to draw this with me, feel free, but here's kind of what it looks like. On one side, we have the choice to live in fear. And the other side, we have the choice to live in love, God's love. And here's how it kind of goes and manifests itself. Fear creates control, right? That is the natural response when we are afraid, to try to control something. But then we have this thing called life, okay? And I don't know if you got the memo, I don't know if you got the email, but life doesn't play fair, and life doesn't always go the way you want it to go. You can try to control life, but good luck. But here we are, we got control, and we run it through life, and when life doesn't play fair, we get all this friction and resistance and stress on the system. And what do we do then? Well, then we medicate. Alcohol, drugs, Amazon Prime, whatever makes us feel better, right? Well, we also, out of all this friction, also just comes addictions. From this friction also comes exhaustion, fatigue, tired. It's hard living this way, but this is where fear takes us. Fear creates us taking control. Life happens, all this friction. We got medication, we got addiction, we got exhaustion. Here's what God says. Here's another way to do this. We got love, and when we know we are loved and taken care of, when we know we are safe because we have God looking out for us, what's the response to that love? Is surrender. Letting go. And when life happens, and life is still messy, life is still hard, life is still gonna throw you some curveballs. But when we are living in love, we get not friction, but we get smooth. Well, let's call it smoother, okay? Or a smoothie, if that helps, whatever. So here you are in surrender. Life is messy, life is difficult sometimes, life is stressful, but it's a smoother life. And when it's smooth and not friction, we get joy, right? We get freedom. I'm even gonna put this here. We have fun. What do you know? Life could actually be fun instead of all of this. And so here are the two options: living in fear or living in God's love. And then the results and the outcomes. My close with this. My family and I, last summer, we got to go to Yosemite, and I had never been to Yosemite National Park. Saw pictures of it, big fan of Ansel Adams, knew about it, and but was really excited to see Yosemite firsthand. And so we packed up the car and drove a long drive from San Diego up to Yosemite, and we're on the highway, and I knew we were getting close because we were seeing signs that says like Yosemite Valley, 5 miles, 10 miles. Like we're getting close, and then the highway turns into and goes into this tunnel. And the tunnel is the longest tunnel in California. And they built it many, many years ago, I think in the 1930s, and they just carved into the mountain this tunnel. And so the highway takes you into this tunnel, this very, very long tunnel, kind of narrow. It's one lane this way, one lane that way. And you go into this tunnel, it's kind of dark. In fact, it's so long that the end of the tunnel, it's like this little speck of light. You really can't see much. You just kind of go into the tunnel, and you're like, I hope we get out to the other side of the tunnel. And we start driving, and we're driving into the tunnel, kind of cruising, and we can see the light getting wider and wider and wider, and we're getting closer to the end of the tunnel. And then as you come out of the tunnel, and this, again, my first time to Yosemite, had no idea, had no expectation of what was on the other side of this tunnel. But as we drove out of the tunnel, this is the picture that you see when you leave the tunnel. No joke. Like, it's almost as if Walt Disney designed this whole thing. Like, as you come out of the tunnel, you see the most majestic, you see El Capitan, and you see the waterfalls, and you see the whole Yosemite Valley, and it is stunningly beautiful. It's like, whoa, did not expect that coming from this dark, dark tunnel, but there it was. And friends, I don't know what tunnel of darkness you might be driving in and driving through. And for some of us, we're living in a lot of fear. And maybe you're in the longest tunnel in California right now. And just a tiny little speck of light at the end. And you're thinking like, God, are you MIA right now? Because I don't feel you, I don't sense you. Do you really have this, God? Because I'm not so sure. Maybe you're facing some real big challenges. And fear feels like a Navy SEAL right now. Fear is taking control. Fear is driving the narrative. And you're in that tunnel and you're like, can I turn around? Nope, one-way direction. Can I stop? Nope. Got to keep going. And here's the promise. And here's what I believe. And sometimes, I got to be honest, the picture doesn't always look like Yosemite Valley on the other side. But I do believe this. Walking through my own pain, my own brokenness, helping others walk through their challenges of life, that as we make our way through the tunnel, that there is a picture on the other side that is beautiful, that you will go through that tunnel, and on the other side, you'll have a new confidence about who you are and whose you are. You will have a new clarity about your life. You will possess new gifts and strengths because you have said, I will surrender the journey, even though I'm afraid, even though I don't know what is on the other side of this very long, dark tunnel. I am trusting God, that he is good, and that he's got a good story for me. But friends, it all begins and it all starts when we drop the duck. Let's bow our heads in prayer. God, thank you. Thank you for loving us so well. And God, I pray that you give us the courage and the bravery and the strength today to release the things that we were never meant to carry. God, that you begin to quiet the voice of fear, to quiet the voice of anxiety. God, that we live in the goodness of your love and your grace each day. And when the challenges come and the hardships and the confusion, God, we know that there is a picture a beautiful picture on the other side if we trust you and leave it in your hands. We love you. We thank you. Thanks for letting us be your children today. It's in your son's name we pray. And all of God's people said, amen.